All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on this lovely Friday Eve. I'm Chris Isbell with Martin and Associates, and as usual, we have Tom Ferris with us. Today, we're excited to kind of talk to you about a lot of neat features in Acumatica around reporting, dashboards, and data analysis. And before we get started with the agenda, a couple housekeeping items. So we are recording this presentation, and you'll get that link sent to you in the next couple days. During the presentation, if you have any questions, please make sure you put those into either the chat or Q&A features of the Zoom meeting. We'll be monitoring those and can bring those up or answer them at the end. And that's really it. So for the agenda today, we are providing with some good information in the form of that link. And then, so we'll kind of cover in this order the Acumatica Report Designer. So a good way to customize existing Acumatica reports or make your own. The financial reporting tool called, I think, Advanced Reporting Manager, which is built right in. Acumatica generic inquiries. It's a good way to report on and do data analysis. Some other intelligence BI tools such as Power BI and way to hook up your Acumatica to tools like that. And dashboards, and then some fun extras, kind of like what's coming with an AI assistant and Acumatica's investment into that arena as well. So, kind of moving on. Again, Chris Isbell, partner, and Tom Ferris, who'll be running the show. He's our Acumatica practice manager. Hopefully, you guys know at least one of us. If not, hello. And just kind of briefly about us. Most of you guys probably know who we are. Been around since '88. ERP for the mid-market is our specialty. And then got lots of good fun staff, developers, and different employees. So I'm going to pass it over to Tom, and he's going to start the show.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Just for folks who are not a Martin Associates customer who might be watching this recording at a later date, we'll just kind of go through these slides really quickly here. And we're at the demo. All right, cool. All right, so let's jump into Acumatica. As prefaced, thanks, Chris, in the slide intro, if you go out to acumatica.com, this Acumatica reporting landing page kind of forms the basis for our outline and the kind of various features that we're going to be going through today. Okay, so if you want to do a little bit of your own research, there it is. All right. So we're going to start with a review of Acumatica Report Designer. Report Designer, probably best explained by just bringing up a visual. So I'm going to go visit in our demo system a sales order. And just call up basically the print form. So whether I was performing an action one-off or I had a automation schedule running and saying when sales orders reach a certain status, email them to the customer as a order confirmation, deliverable. Going to put a PDF in their inbox, and so these are all they're all related processes. But the PDF that would be generated would typically be generated by this out of the box print form. And if you're a live customer with us, Martin Associates and or yourselves have probably made modifications to this form because it comes in a certain format, and whether or not all these fields and the way they're presented are relevant to your business. What this really comes down to is how easy it is to modify these, and they're I will pop out to Acumatica Open University and remind us of some of the training content. It's all free out there, so that some of the things that Chris and I reviewed today, you're basically reminded about that there's training available for almost everything we're going to show today. All right, so what's behind this form? If we have the right user role, we can hit this pencil and review like report versions. So one of the easiest things to do is manage different variations as you kind of mature how the form you wish it to behave. So I can come in here and actually activate a different version of that report. And then I'll back up to my sales order. A lot of times it's a good idea when you make a change like that is to hit refresh on the browser. And then I'll reprint the order. And now the silly like header is pink. Right, it's fuchsia. So how'd that happen? Let's dive into that. If we have the report designer user role on our permissions, then we have access to this thing called edit report. And editing the report will drop out to, I'm actually going to cancel that. Let's get rid of that. We'll actually drop out what's called an RPS file to your desktop. And here is where we can actually conduct editing. And let's see, did I have this one ready to go? Nope, I dropped it. Okay, so let's engage the Acumatica report editor. And I got a couple settings. I got my password I got to put in there. Oh, geez, let me get that ready. All right, so basically the same credentials that we use to log into Acumatica need to be presented here in um, the report client on your desktop. I teach about the URL. Yes, that's where we're going. Thank you very much. All right, so now we're actually looking at the report editor. And I came in and just played around with one of really hundreds of parameters that we can kind of play around with. And I came into the style and I made the background color instead of null, basically no color or white, and I changed the color. But um, we have the opportunity to set conditions about the field wrapping, define where in the database does the data come from. So there's an expression builder here. Here's all the tables. Um, that's the business account, aka the one version of the customer record. Um, the customer, of course, the sales order itself has a shipping address. There's the sales order header. There's the sales order lines or the details. So whatever you wish to expose is available. Um, and then, behavior wise, we often take fields and make them conditionally visible or invisible. Like there are certain customers that want to see certain bits of metadata displayed on their print form and others that do not. And so that same expression builder that helps us go and retrieve the content that's revealed on the report also allows us to build a visibility expression for conditional reveal of content. We could spend 3 hours going through Acumatica Report Designer. Chris, did you have any highlights before we leave Acumatica Report Designer itself behind and move on?
Can you kind of talk real quick about like the images or that funny looking QR code thing?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Right. So, um, when we looked at the print form, we're actually pulling um, from Acumatica an image, for example, in this case, um, built from, and let's go look at that expression again here. So where is it getting? This is the logo, the business's logo placeholder. And what is it doing? Um, there's a number of options for what image type um, and where does the image come from? From the database, from an external source? Do we actually have it embedded here in the report itself? Those are all options. We have it basically going to the database. So Acumatica is dynamically building the print form image that becomes a PDF by looking into the database. And so let's go take a look at the expression there. What's up with my editor? Can't quite see it with this with screen wrapping, but basically what we're doing is drilling into the company and branch structure, and on the branch record are unique logos. Is that what you were kind of looking for, Chris? It was like that we can
Yep.
basically decide how an image is revealed and why. Okay,
Yep. Correct.
cool, right on. And then the other another image that's available here. This is Acumatica payments, um, and their payment link QR code, but other payment portals, our friends at eBizCharge, etc., are also capable of doing this. In which case, they're basically saying, I want a bitmap. It's going to come from a barcode sitting on the sales order record, and what I want to reveal is a destination URL, basically behind that actually powers the value of, to Chris's point, what am I revealing here? A picture? Am I revealing like a 128 barcode on here? In this case, it's a QR code, a two-dimensional barcode. All right, so static images as well as barcode and QR code generation are part of it. Again, there's hundreds of features in here for getting the report to look the way you want it to, perhaps under varying conditions. All right, cool,
Perfect.
right on. So I will leave Acumatica Report Designer behind, but I will pop into the sales order. I talked briefly about report version control here. There's a tab in here that defines print and email settings. So we can actually have defaults about um, delivery and subject when we do email this PDF image. We also have the opportunity to build custom reports, report filtering conditions. So now this is one sales order, but if there were something about the lines on the sales order, that some of the lines shouldn't be revealed in the print form. Maybe some of the lines were notations about pending freight, but we don't know anything about the freight, and we don't want to like regurgitate that information when we actually send out the PDF. We could come in here to the additional filtering conditions and basically go find those SO line elements and come up with a conditional filtering that filters them out. Save that as like a shared filter. In this case, I was basically saying there are certain conditions under which I want to reveal or not reveal for the state of New Jersey certain things. So I could actually be setting up a filtering condition so that this report only runs or does not run for a given condition. All right, so if we pull that up, you can basically see my little pre-built billing address state equals New Jersey is a certain what Acumatica calls a form template that is invoking these additional filtering conditions that I put together. Those are the standard parameters, and then the parameters are then further augmented by what we set up as far as filtering conditions and or sorting conditions even. All right, so quick one on that. The last thing I had regarding the Acumatica reports is their ability to be invoked as a side panel. And we could spend an hour just on side panels, but that same sales order that we were looking at and checking out its print form example, I can actually invoke that print form right from here. So this is the side panel feature of Acumatica generic inquiry. So the generic inquiry is on the left, and it has the row that I'm highlighting has all the context, aka the parameters. These, what's the sales order type, and what's the sales order number, to be able to actually reveal um, kind of like a quick preview of the actual printed form. All right, so that's side panel, and once we get into generic inquiry, we'll talk about how did that happen. And some of this is pre-built in Acumatica, but making additional side panels when you're on rows of data and that have the row of data be contextual and actually inform other views without having to like leave the screen, that's a side panel feature. All right. Um, for report delivery, there are lots of options, but I'm going to take us very briefly to sometimes an overlooked feature, and there's a couple different ways to do that, but there's the send reports is like Acumatica, other Acumatica processes can be scheduled to um, run automatically on whatever schedule you want. And we can be deciding who are the recipients. In this example, we can actually merge reports. And if there's a recipient pool that, say, on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, weekly basis, should receive both the balance sheet and the P&L variant for rolling 12 months, we could actually be sending those PDFs kind of like on command in a send reports merge command. There's a whole bunch of other ways to deliver these reports. I'll pop briefly into this will happen module by module, sales orders, purchases, receivables, payables, but sales order preferences. Each of these module preference forms will have a mailing and printing tab where we basically say, when we deliver a quote versus, say, a live sales order, which form, and we were looking at this 6410 form. That's the form I want. And you are to deliver it from sales at organization, accounts payable at, info at. We can basically have the default email delivery address that delivers these reports, and then invokes an email template that defines the body, the subject, if there's a CC or a BCC on there, what format is the report delivered in? In this case, a sales order payment link is using a template and it's delivering HTML versus PDF versus Excel format. Okay, so that's about a little bit about report delivery. There's much more to that, but that's kind of a quick preview about delivering the reports, these PDF or Excel images. All right. Chris, anything there before we move on to Analytical Report Manager, the financial reports engine?
I think we're good right now.
Okay, cool. I'll leave the sales order workspace. We'll come back to it in a bit. And I'm in the finance module. Acumatica, certainly you can have generic inquiry, which we'll talk about. And there are certainly static reports like our sales order print form that are applicable, but there's really a third reporting engine in Acumatica that Acumatica calls ARM, Analytical Report Manager, and it's what powers GL, aka financial statements. Now let's take a look at some of the flexibility granted to us by through like the lens of the default P&L. And so I'm just going to run the report. You might have noticed that I'm running it for an older period just because that's where our demo data is fairly mature, and remind us about like our ability to kind of drill down there. Now let's talk about Analytical Report Manager and some of the mechanics behind this. First up would be even for like today's demonstration. If I come in here and to hit the pencil and edit the report, we have a control panel called Report Definitions, where I didn't want it to look at today's period by default. I wanted to backdate it to July 2024 data. And that can be requested, aka an input parameter, and the parameter can be fulfilled, by a value actually select, or it can be left open-ended. And so we have all this default data source settings in our command that are like just really easy to modify. What is it cosmetically called? That's in the sitemap there. And then the real meat and potatoes is in row set, column set, and unit set. We'll dive into these a little bit more detail. Let's go back here and run that report and remind ourselves about the unit set. All right, so unit set's an optional. It reveals itself as this grouping. And in this case, Acumatica's demo system is set to it's got one unit set variant that's basically mimicking the company and branch structure of our demo data. So in July, top line, $7.3 million. I'm on the consolidated, basically everything view. And the next layer would be the product company contributions, 5 million of that versus the services company generating 2.2 million. And then further, if I drill into within this 5 million, how much is the wholesale versus the retail branch contributing? All right, so that's one way to employ. This is a user-defined construct. So if I come in here and edit the report and toggle our unit set from a branch-based breakdown to a product line-based breakdown, save, and let's take a look at that real quick. All right, so here I mentioned that it's a user-defined construct. You build a hierarchy, and then you define what defines each node of the hierarchy through this data source. In this case, we're basically saying pick up everything from a company ledger. Well, ledger is going to actually be driven by the actual ledger, but pick up all account classes. All I really want you to do is focus on what posted to the GL under the sub account for consumer goods product line. And so that's defined right there in the sub account value versus electronics. So that's this user defined construct and this little reporting tree. It's what's driving our unit set behavior. Let's see it in action. Make an edit, refresh the browser, rerun the report, save 7.3 million. And now our groups, instead of being branch broken down by companies and branch, it's broken down by product line. So across all branches, what were the contributions to that 7.3 top line from consumer goods versus electronics? And there's go ahead.
I was gonna say nice. And you can because those unit sets are customizable, you could keep making as many layers as you needed to based on any of the things that Tom just showed, like branches, sub account segments, companies, all that fun stuff. So it can be multi-level, however you want to determine things and describe things. So
Right. That our example has just kind of like two levels, but we could divide a level three further and break down consumer. If we had the sub account structure intact, to Chris's point, to do so, we could say consumer goods sold by what geography, by which sales team, um, uh, to which customer class, so long as those were elements of our sub account string. Yep. Cool. All right. You're right. That our demo data has only like two layers. We can have as many as we wish. And like my little edit there, so let's get rid of that. Okay. Let's close that, like that. And the last thing I had regarding kind of demonstrating like the ease of use for analytical report manager for financial reports would be to like just pull up a different variation of that same report and run it. So same period, but this is, and you'll basically see that there's that 7.36 in July 2024, and then this one has columns. So our our row design is exactly the same. 2.27, 2.27. But all that's different in here, and this is kind of like building with Legos. In editing this report, I could be pulling in the same unit set, pulling in basically the same row set, and all I'm really doing is just changing the column set. In this case, the column set is um, paying attention to the data source, much like our unit set. So -1 is I basically say whatever the input parameter was from the user as far as the date, just back it off um, by one period. This is the year column, and this is the monthly. In this case, monthly period is how our data is set up. So -1 basically says I need to see the turnover for 1 month back from what the parameter was. July, go back to June 2024 is basically what this is saying, and then we just repeat that and build a column for each month, kind of going back in time. But the row set and the unit set that we're employing are the same. So we just kind of mix and match. All right. Well, any other fun stuff regarding finance analytical report manager engine, Chris?
Um, Not at the moment, but if we could, we do have a question about the send report screen.
Yeah, sure. Hmm.
Yeah. The question is that a recent update or how do you turn it on? How do you kind of
Ooh, that's a good
get that
question.
in
Okay,
there?
totally fair. Yeah. So there is a slight trick. I don't know, and mostly it's because Acumatica, this send reports has been around a long time, and there are other ways to deliver it. So if you're interested in exploring this, this is getting a little bit technical, but you're going to want to come into customization and uh, the sitemap. And Acumatica elected to not have the send reports. And they did this a number of years ago. They basically didn't declare a workspace or a category. So the send reports form, SM 205060, doesn't know where it should show up in the user interface. But this line should exist in your database. And if you just populate it with, just give it a workspace and a category, and then boom, it'll be there and show up in that workspace, in this case, sales orders.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. There's kind of another way to get there, right? Like if you're on a report and you go to schedule,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
it doesn't take you
I think
there.
that's one of the reasons why they kind of hit it
Yeah.
is that it's really best invoked from scheduling a given document. Yeah, so Chris, let's pull, well, I'll do it this way. Let me just go from the sales order, pick a document. Let's clean up my tabs here. All right. Uh, let's see that print form. And then our scheduling command, remind me, I don't use that very often.
Hit the pencil icon there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So once you save a template, it works best, for things like that you run regularly, like an AR aging or, something that you might do regularly and have it sent out.
Hmm.
Um, but you need to, generally speaking, make a template so it's got certain settings.
Pick your subset.
Yes. And then
Mhm,
you'll notice the buttons light up and just hit schedule template.
mhm.
And you just say, oh, okay, I need to set up a schedule first. So you just hit OK. The merging reports means if you add multiple reports to that same schedule, it will merge them into like one big PDF.
Right.
But if you just hit OK and set up the schedule, it'll kind of take you to that you can see the screen ID is send reports, but then you just run through your schedule. It's just another way to kind of get it all scheduled and everything. So
Yep. Perfect. All right. Excellent. So description. Uh, Chris's send reports. for SO print. Save. Yeah, I'm missing some
You're
parameters
probably
on
missing
the
some
schedule,
parameters. Yeah.
right? Like, well, when is it starting? You haven't told me. Right?
Right. And how
Yeah,
often do you want to run throughout the day and all kinds of fun stuff.
right.
So
Yep. So it's just basically another way to get to the automation schedule and really invoke the send reports.
correct.
I'm guessing that send reports must have caused enough confusion because people didn't go through the level of detail that we just did. And we're coming here to send reports and trying to kind of build a line. I'm not sure what I'm missing, why that's not showing up here. Me? No. Report ID. Anyways,
Yeah,
okay.
you're good.
So, again, there are multiple ways to accomplish either one-off delivery or scheduled delivery. Business events is another way. If you have additional questions, just reach out to Chris or I or anyone else at Martin Associates, and we can dive into kind of automating the delivery of the content.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Um, so that was analytical report manager, aka financial reports. A quick run through. Let's dive into generic inquiry. All right, so
Everybody's favorite.
yeah, I mean, it's the most powerful tool. It's the easiest to use. Again, we preface side panel. We'll talk about this here briefly. Um, I'm I'm choosing to work with an existing generic inquiry. It's the sales order primary list, and Acumatica will put a suffix on the URL or screen ID. It'll say PL. It's that those are their pre-built primary lists, but they're generic inquiries at their heart. So the usual things like drag and drop configuration, configurator management. You guys, if you're a current Acumatica customer, you know all these things. So let's take it to the next level. Um, Certainly building filters, right? Filters can be temporary, aka a quick filter. So clear all. I want to pay attention to just maybe I'm looking to conduct some analysis on completed sales orders. Okay, so that's a quick filter. It shows up there just like Excel with a little funnel icon and a little status of completed. And then we ditch it, remove the quick filter. All right, next level would be to come here to the filter settings and build a filter. So this is kind of Boolean statement 101. I want the status equals uh, completed, and I want to analyze. I don't want to deal with these transfer orders. I want to deal with just order type equals um, not my e-commerce orders. Come on, keep going. Sales orders. Okay, so this filter is now called completed sales orders. Okay, I'm going to make that my default because I'm doing a bunch of analysis right now, and I'm going to share it with other users who visit this screen. Save, apply. Um, this, FYI, this button right here, this shared filter will matter quite a bit when we get to the dashboards section of today's presentation. Right, so remember this, shared filters matters regarding dashboard building and modification. All right, so I have gone from 9,000 records down to filtering just for completed orders of type SO is 5,800 of them. And that's a kind of a permanent or semi-permanent filter. If you don't like a filter, right underneath the ellipsis right here is the remove, make it go bye-bye. And you have to rebuild it. Okay. Up next would be highlighting, okay, so what am I doing here? I wanted completed sales orders because I'm conducting some sort of analysis. So let's start to conduct some analysis and leverage the pivot table feature. So within completed sales orders, I want to break it down by quarter and a default, sales person. Okay, so I was going to highlight the pivot table feature of generic inquiry. And if you build pivot tables in Microsoft Excel, almost all the business rules and parameters are going to be very similar. All right, so per my name, completed sales orders, I'm basically filtering on a subset and then taking that subset and running a pivot table analysis. So quarters wise is going to be date based. So I'm going to throw date here. And I said default salesperson is kind of what I'm going to cross tab against. And I want a tally of the orders themselves. So the order number is a unique value. It'll be a good thing to count on. Date wise, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to round at the year level. And I will leave that for a second. I'm going to pull in the date field the second time. And I want to break down at the quarter level. And let's see what we got. Um, okay, well, I don't really care about 2013 very much anymore. So, whoops. I'm going to come back here to date and toggle ascending to descending and rerun my pivot table. I could have exposed additional fields so that I convert these default salesperson IDs into people's names instead of salesperson one, salesperson two, salesperson three. But you get the idea that it's a fairly powerful analytic tool right at your fingertips, really easy. Now, it doesn't have like subtotaling features. That would be employing Acumatica Report Designer or dropping this whole thing out to Excel, leveraging the Velixo Excel integration platform, lots of other ways to perform analytics outside of Acumatica. But right in Acumatica, this is pretty nice. And that the pivot table by default also gives a drill down. So I clicked on one cell and it brought me to the 46 records that are in that cell. So now I'm getting closer to, now I've actually identified salesperson three falling in whatever quarter I clicked on. I clicked on Q3 of 2024, and there's 46 sales orders, to kind of speed me along in my analysis. And maybe I'm conducting analysis on margin achieved or something like that. Okay. So that's a quick rundown on pivot table. We could go into much more detail on pivot table. I like to use it as just a navigation tool too. Outside of it, it's just analytics. 9,000 records is a lot of rows. And most of the time, all I really care about are open quotes and open sales orders. And so this pivot tables, I'm not really using it as an analysis tool. I'm just using it as a navigation tool. I want to quickly get, and I don't want to have to build a filter. I just want to get to the open sales orders and, just pivot on order type and status. And I can get to open quotes and open sales orders really easily with the pivot table as a navigation tool. Okay. Let's dive a little deeper behind the scenes on generic inquiry. We're going to hit customization. So this is the guts behind the generic inquiry. There are some great features. Again, we could spend multiple hours, and there's actually a few hours worth of training content on Acumatica Open University. But adding a related table can be challenging. What are the joins between tables? But Acumatica provides an add related table wizard that if I'm trying to link from the customer to, say, a customer location, I should probably just type in location. Right, so the location records on customers are joined to the customer record by location ID and business account. I don't have to know what the keys were. It'll actually build the relationship between the table I already have in place and the table I want to add to my analysis. I'll hit cancel on this, and we'll just kind of quickly preview. How is one table related to another? It's on the Relations tab. Sales order is related to the customer in a left join. based on the customer ID field on the sales order and the business account ID on the customer table. And I don't have to know that. This add related table, once we begin to recognize what tables we want to add to an inquiry, can be built for us. Okay. Why would I be doing that? And how would I know which table to add? Let's do a quick kind of a generic inquiry like support um, feature review here. So on a sales order, these are the forms and the tabs, and I'm trying to conduct some analysis. A really important tool is underneath customization, if you have the customizer user role, is inspect element. And you can see the shortcut there, Control Alt click. But if I hover over order type, I get reminded that the order type comes from a table or DAC or data access class. They're all the same. It's basically essentially a table. The sales order table, and I'm looking at the order type field. How about the customer? All right, so that comes within the sales order table. That is the customer ID field, which is exactly what we were just um, looking at right here. All right, so conducting some interrogation of the tables behind, and maybe I'm doing some analysis on commissions. Inspect element, hover over the field. Aha. So if I was conducting analysis of sales orders and their commissions, I would need to have a join between the sales order table and the sales order sales per transaction um, table. Right. So there's how you would know what kind of join to form in your inquiry. And this takes, some getting used to. It might be a fairly deep dive for some users. Others, this is a piece of cake. And if you're somewhere in the middle, there's training. So let's take a quick moment to pop out to Acumatica Open University and remind ourselves about how to search for some of this training content. Of course, your Martin Associates contact can help with this kind of stuff. But learning paths wise, from an end user training paths perspective, we come into this reporting node, and there's analytical report manager. That's the financial reports that we were looking at earlier. Data retrieval and analysis. That's generic inquiry. And then a little bit later here, with our remaining time, we'll pop into dashboards. So data retrieval and analysis. Here's a course on generic inquiry, how they're used in dashboards. We talked about advanced filters, and we actually talked about pivot tables. Right, so there's lots of great content out there. All right, I need to keep us moving along here, so let's do a little bit of razzle dazzle on the sales orders list. Here, carried away here. All right. Another option in generic inquiry besides side panel is conditional formatting. Let's just show how easy that can be. So sales orders that are awaiting payment, I got prepayment conditions on certain customers. If we come into generic inquiry and the results grid here, we see a formula. I don't have it quite correct, so I'm going to correct the formula. Basically, what this boils down to is I have an if statement, go look at the sales order status, and if it's an A for, which basically stands for in the schema, awaiting payment, then I would like a certain style invoked. Save that. Let's review our revised inquiry. All right. So I basically said, if you see the status value of awaiting payment, just light the cell up orange. I could have told it to light up the entire row as orange. So conditional formatting is yet another generic inquiry feature. And there's a whole bunch more. Chris, any favorites before we move on to dashboards?
I think you covered them all. The sidebars and the conditional formatting and pivot tables are the highlights for sure.
Not the biggies. Yep. Okay,
Yep.
cool. Appreciate that. Um, so let's take a quick run through of dashboards. I'm going to pull up uh, the sales manager dashboard and remind us that um, everything about it is drill down capable. And behind this is an inquiry. Behind really almost all these objects are an inquiry, right? So we click on a visualization of data, and what we're brought to is an inquiry and a generic inquiry. And in this case, we have a drill down where the drill down is basically kind of an instantly generated Boolean statement that says you clicked in a certain place and that equals date, net sale, and branch conditions. And then we're into our inquiry, and this could have conditional formatting. Once we're here, what was it on this graph that attracted you to click into it? And then what are you going to do with this data? Again, it's a generic inquiry behind it. And we can basically see that if we put this in design mode and we click on the pencil, um, we'll basically see the inquiry screen and um, either a shared filter or you can actually put in a custom filter here. Okay. And then really importantly, it's hiding behind the configure button is basically all the things that you're used to in Microsoft Excel as far as building a visual chart element, whether it's a line chart or donut or stacked bar or a funnel. Okay. Again, there's a whole course out there on Acumatica Open University for what Acumatica calls widget design, which are the components of a dashboard. And while we're on this dashboard, I'm going to do another little bit of kind of sizzle, and that's remind us all about the Acumatica mobile app that comes with your subscription for free. So this is my iPhone 12 mini logging into our same sales demo. And I'm going to come on down here to our dashboards, and that sales manager dashboard that we're looking at, you can consume the same thing on your phone, right? So if you are monitoring sales and you care about how many, there's 63 open quotes. That seems like a lot. And you can basically see that same information from the mobile app. And if I scroll on down, I get the, access to the graphs and the bar chart, the line graphs and the bar. So that can be managed all right from the properties of the dashboard, where you elect to do or do not expose the dashboard, and the same button exists on generic inquiries, to the mobile application. Okay. All right. So quick reminder about mobile app. Um, let's see, I got less than 10 minutes left. We talked about reminder that there's let me get the mobile app out of the way, sorry. Pre-built library of dashboards, making modifications to a dashboard. Dashboards. Oh, let's do the customer one. Sorry. I like the where to go. Customer view. Customer view. This is a powerful one in that the dashboard can have a governing parameter. Right now, it's running wide open. But if I come in here and say, I want all those elements to pivot based on the parameter input, in which case I want just a single customer. We can design the generic inquiry behind each of these to, so long as it has the customer ID in there, then I can actually put in a parameter on the dashboard that asks the user about, do you want to run this thing for just a particular customer? Okay, so parameter, that's a really one of many powerful features about the dashboard feature set in Acumatica. Let's just blank that out, run it back wide open, and remind us like how easy it is to like cosmetically change these things. Wait, What was I at? Okay, orders to ship, quantity of 8 is green, but maybe that's not the color palette I want. Right. So if we can come in here and change this and go 3, um, sorry, more like 5 and 3. Finish. Boom. And now because we exceeded a threshold of 5, orders to ship moved to instead of red, it moved to green because that feels like a lot of backlog for a given day. Um, Modifying dashboards, adding new elements. So let's throw this into design mode one last time and remind ourselves about the types of things that can be added. I don't have a Power BI example, but data can be sent from Acumatica to Microsoft Power BI, analyzed and basically formatted down into a visual output, and then you can bring that Power BI quote tile back into Acumatica on a dashboard. So that's kind of that is pre-built. Um, and again, we're looking at we've seen chart examples. It could just be a table of data like this one over here. It could be a KPI like these scorecards over here. Those are kind of like the main things. Um, and then Power BI and pivot tables can be brought in here as well. Okay, let's put that back there. I had two little Chris, is there anything more really quick on like dashboards and or kind of Power BI integration that you want to make sure we covered in our remaining minutes?
The only thing to say there, I think, is while you can hook your data up to Power BI, you can also still display like a Power BI widget or something in an Acumatica dashboard.
Mhm.
So it can kind of go both ways.
Yep.
While the data still is in Acumatica, sometimes Power BI has really robust visualization tools, and there's others, you know, BI solutions like if you use Tableau or um, there's some Acumatica ones in the marketplace that work really well as well.
Yep. And moving data in and out of Acumatica, I'll just kind of go through this kind of verbally. OData is one
Hmm.
way. Import and export scenarios are another way. API, so web services, is yet another way. Our demo system, has this images upload service to actually add images from an external source um, on the stock items via API. There's also external applications. Let's pull this one up, right? So this is a bidirectional exchange, Microsoft Exchange Online um, mechanism. So basically, between Power BI, OData, import scenarios, API, aka web services, and these external application, and there's only a few things that qualify for this. There's basically ways to get data in and out of Acumatica that are pretty straightforward. So, all right. We do occasionally get power users ask like, man, I sure wish I could get to the SQL directly in Acumatica. And there is a partner out there, AUG Forums, who has a gadget that's been around for a couple years and it works pretty nicely, allowing you to query straight in through SQL. So that does exist. Acumatica has been talking about making direct SQL views available. Chris, do you remember anything from Summit about SQL view direct access into the underlying SQL from Acumatica?
You can use that to make a view and then run it.
That's true too. Yep. Yep. All right. With our remaining minutes, I'm going to jump to the future. So the invitation would really be whether you were there at Summit in Las Vegas or not, this content, so acumatica.com, thank you, Summit. Um, You can basically just kind of Google it for Acumatica Summit content. What I'd highly recommend is looking at day one's keynote um, feature. It actually starts at minute 14 and runs to minute 24. So it's about 10 minutes long, and it dives into like a live demo of AI assistant where voice prompts are building inquiries and visualizations, including dashboards, um, right in the AI assistant. So it's basically building um, uh, bar charts and KPIs and line graphs based on an audio prompt. And it's not vaporware, it's actually pre-production software that Acumatica's demonstrated. And it's very appealing to conduct exactly the kind of analysis we've been talking about for the last hour with a voice prompt, instead of becoming so familiar with generic inquiry building, data table joins, and dashboard building. So check it out. Chris, any closing remarks or last minute things or last minute questions before we conclude today?
I know we're about done, so we'll just say, yeah, as Tom said, the Open University is a great way to learn more about GIs and the Acumatic Report Writer and the Financial Report Writer and dashboards. If you or someone in your company wants to learn those things yourselves. And, we're always around to help to train people on how to do that, to, help you make some GIs or dashboards that are important for your company. So just ask your friendly Martin and Associates Acumatica person, and we can help you out. Other than that, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully, you found it helpful and informative. So look forward to the next one.